nobody knows more about, where parking is needed than truck drivers, the people who are actually looking for the parking spaces.
Thanks for stopping by. We got a lot to talk about here, and we're going to run down the seemingly never-ending list of truck parking news here in just a moment. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act. We have talked, I can't count how many times we've talked about this before in the past, about the previous bills, but it's been reintroduced, and hopefully we'll see some momentum here on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic, as I am with most things that have to deal with government. But but to be fair, there's a lot of momentum behind this one. I know this is the fourth bite at the apple, but there's more co-sponsors coming into this one. Like initially, this is like the definition of like a common sense bipartisan bill. Like it really is. You hear people float that phrase, so many times. This really is. It currently has 27 co-sponsors, 14 Democrats, 13 Republicans. No new spending. The $755 million in funding is already available. Just dedicates that money to projects for to expand truck parking capacity. So I don't know what more to say other than I just encourage everyone to go to fightingfortruckers.com. Fill out that quick form, kind of let your lawmakers know to kind of get behind this. I mean, you don't have to sell it that hard because I think it should sell itself, but really kind of make the case, and hopefully we can get this one out the door. I know that there's been a lot of talk about some infrastructure. I know the Trump administration, at least his first term, was very pro-trucker in so many ways. So hopefully we can kind of see that momentum ride.
Yeah, especially with Republican control in Congress, in both chambers of Congress, and obviously President Trump being in office. So if it does make it to his desk, you would hope and you would think that he would sign it as well. But yeah, fightingfortruckers.com is a great place to reach out to your lawmakers, let them know about this issue, make sure that they know about it and are doing something about it as well. Tyson, we talk all the time about the need on the federal level with things like the truck parking bill to address the truck parking shortage nationwide. But we also talk about states taking notice of this issue more and more. Case in point, right here in our backyard, actually, the Missouri DOT asking for feedback from the trucking community as it ponders truck parking expansion projects throughout the state. And this would go a long way toward fixing the problem if we can get something going here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what's happening is Missouri, they're updating, it's updating the state freight and rail plans, what's happening. So that is going to include a truck parking analysis. And so part of that analysis is to gather data that will pretty much identify where truck parking is needed, stuff like that. And that being said, nobody knows more about, where parking is needed than truck drivers, the people who are actually looking for the parking spaces. So the Missouri Department of Transportation is asking truck drivers who drive through Missouri to take a survey where they will kind of just relay their parking experience in the state. That includes not only where parking is needed, but they're also going to ask about, which amenities they prioritize when looking for truck parking. So maybe they kind of address that issue as well. So, I realize that truck drivers, whenever we say the word survey or study, the eyes roll to the back of their head.
Yeah. A chill comes through the room. Yeah,
right.
It comes in the room.
I get it. We know where the problems are when it comes to parking, but the quote unquote government bureaucrats, they do not, And so before any state DOT or government can ask for money for any kind of project, or any agency for that matter, for any project, you want to ask for money, you need to justify that, asking for that money. And the government's going to want numbers. They're going to want facts. And so this is what these surveys and studies provide the government, which is the hardcore facts that to quantify, truck parking and the problems in order to, hand over money for that. So that being said, I think the output of any study or survey is only as good as the input. And so the reason why I bring that up is because, Missouri Department of Transportation has done this once before, back in 2022, I believe is when it was. Mm-hmm. They sent out literally thousands of emails to trucking companies and truck drivers who operate in Missouri. 16 drivers completed that survey.
That's not a great return.
It's not a great
No.
return, and the chances are that those 16 truck drivers would speak for, the majority of truck drivers in terms of their parking experiences. Not very likely. So my point being is the more drivers that participate in these surveys, then the more accurate the results are going to be, and the more likely that the actual legit problems will be solved and addressed. And so just basically my long-winded way of pleading to the truck drivers out there to absolutely take this survey. If you need to find it, go to landline.media. I'll go ahead and post it right now on my Twitter account at Fisher Tyson, and I'm sure we can probably drop a link in the show notes.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's one of these things, too. You wonder if some people just don't know that the survey is out there, which is why we got 16 the last time, which is good. Why it's good that we're talking about it right now as well. But,
And just real quick, I forgot to mention, March 16th is the closing day, so you got a few days.
Yeah, and it doesn't take long to fill it out. But as you pointed out, it really does help a lot, help people understand, the people that are making these decisions understand where the needs are and how to address them. If you don't speak out, as you pointed out, they're not going to have any idea about where the problems are and how to address them. So definitely do that. Tyson gave out all the links there that we'll put on landlinenow.com as well. And as we kind of plot out, what works, what doesn't work with regard to truck parking, devoid of, crazy idea, actually adding spaces throughout the country. We get into these conversations about technology and apps and just how useful they are. FMCSA recently released a study that looked into whether apps are a good use of time and resources. And you spoke with the lead researcher of this study. Can you tell us what you took away from your talk with her, from the study itself, and what we can learn there?
Yeah, so just a quick little background. Yeah. FMCSA commissioned the study to look into truck parking usage and then whether an app can kind of improve that usage. So yeah, I talked to the lead researcher, and what her main findings were, some of the findings as far as usage is stuff that we already knew, which is basically that the demand for overnight parking is not being met, which is forcing truckers to drive or to park on the exits and entrance ramps, stuff like that, which is all good and well. But the biggest takeaway for me of the study was this idea that truckers are perhaps hesitant to use parking apps. And that kind of pushed back on and that wasn't necessarily the explicit finding of the study, but I noticed that other people were kind of reporting on it that way, which is, truckers may not want to use parking apps. That's not exactly what happened. And so what happened was this study they conducted a pilot program to see whether or not an app would, increase usage. And so what they did was they allowed truckers to park at certain rest areas in Iowa and Wisconsin. When you parked at these spots, there would be a sign that says, download this app and check in. So you would literally check in and check out via an app of these parking spaces, and then other truckers who were using that app could see whether or not those spaces were available in real time. That's kind of like the gist of it, right? The problem is that this app was used at only 9 rest areas in Iowa and Wisconsin. So 9 rest areas across 2 states, but within those 9 rest areas, only 4 parking spots each of those 9. So basically 36 parking spots across total across 2 states were being monitored through this truck parking usage app where you can check in and check out. So
not a thorough study necessarily.
No, not at all.
Not a full picture.
No, and that was kind of the thing. And so because of that, or they didn't say because of that, but what they found was very few truckers actually used the app. That was one of the results that they found. So they thousands of truckers were told about this app, and then maybe a few hundred used it, and they only used it like once, and then they kind of just disposed of it. And they're like, well, maybe truckers aren't open to these apps. And it's like, well, I don't think the problem was just apps in general. It was the information being provided in these apps or the lack thereof. And so, I guess the point being is that what truckers want is they want a very comprehensive truck parking app. And so when you have 36 spots in 2 states, it doesn't do them any good, especially when you're an interstate trucker. You want to know where all the spots are.
And one that would do that, right? That would tell you
Sure,
what
right.
available spots are in each rest area and this area in particular. That would help, right?
As long as it's all the spots
Right.
at all the rest areas,
Comprehensive.
that would be great. Unfortunately, state-owned DOT, rest areas do not have a centralized database. So one state has an app and another state. So what we really need here, and this is what I think is a takeaway to the study, and the lead researcher kind of agreed with me on this, which is this kind of shows that there's an opportunity for state governments to kind of get together and maybe get the federal government involved to have a centralized database of this truck parking data being collected at publicly owned rest areas. You get that into a single app, I guarantee you truckers would use that.
And I can't remember specifically which task force or which meeting this was, but I do remember specifically OIDA President Todd Spencer talking about that specifically in saying that if there were a centralized app or a database or someplace you could go to get that information in real time about available truck parking spaces at this particular location, that would be helpful for a lot of folks because that would save you a lot of time, obviously, hunting for a parking space here or there because you would know where they are. I imagine that's a lot easier said than done.
Sure.
But, something to consider here is we see these studies come out, which it's encouraging that they're looking at the issue, but, the conversation, I think, probably needs to take that next step. We were talking about truck parking apps, and I know people have mixed feelings about the paid parking apps, but we do have a couple new kids on the block, I believe, with that particular area, right?
Yeah, this is why I push back on this idea that truckers are hesitant to use parking apps because if that was the case, then why do private sector entrepreneurs keep entering
going back
the
to the
space?
well.
Right. So we got some new players in the game. So the first one is Rig Lots. Basically, it's just a truck parking app, paid parking, mostly in the southeast right now as it just got started. It's very similar to Truck Parking Club in that it allows landowners to kind of convert their spaces, into paid parking. So that's one of them. Another one is called Eagle Pay. Or the company is called Eagle Pay, but they launched a website called besttruckparking.com.
Yep.
It is a website. It is not an app. So there's nothing on your app store. I did kind of log into it on my phone, so it is very mobile device friendly. So it kind of has the feel of an app. So that being said, it is mostly the eastern half of the country, so there's not much west of Texas. And then again, just like Rig Lots and Truck Parking Club, in that it allows property owners to list their property as available for truck parking. So I actually went on that website just before I came up here to talk to you, kind of see how that goes. And it's interesting on this one because it allows you to search by amenity. And when you filter for only locations with restrooms, most of the flags on the map are wiped out. That's kind of the issue that I have with this relying on parking apps and paid parking, which is we're not getting any amenities, including restrooms. So again, that's why public rest areas and then parking funding is something we absolutely need.
Yeah, and I feel confident that we're going to figure this out at some point. The free market usually does figure it out eventually. What that looks like and how long that'll be, I have no idea. I'm not an expert on that, but I do feel like we're going to get there at some point, but trial and error. Tyson, whatever happens, we know that you'll keep an eye on it, and we appreciate you keeping us updated as always.
Thanks for having me.
Our thanks to Tyson Fisher, as always, for his time. You can check out his stellar work on the truck parking crisis and any number of other topics over on our website, landline.media.